So one of the top requests for how I actually managed to get the letters or these elements to look like they looked in the book came for these particular letters right here, the M and the C that I did for Merry Christmas. It is one of those techniques that you can get have a great impact with just by doing very simple techniques. So let me show you. To begin with, you just make sure that you have all of the dust and whatnot off of there. And then you're going to need 2 or 3 colors, usually no more than 3. And because I'm adding in a silver mixative, these are 2 of the colors are from the new Adirondack Bright alcohol ink. One is Pool and one is Sailboat Blue. And I'm going to add in the silver mixative, which you always want to have very well stirred. But in doing that, and I may do just a touch of green, we'll see about that. But you want to use your Tim Holtz applicator tool, only this time you want to make sure that you have felt on it instead of the blending pad. So I'm going to put my Glossy Accents off to the side for just a moment, and to really get the effect that you want to have about 2 or 3 drops of your dominant colors in 3 places. You don't want them right next to each other. So I'm going to put those on the pad, and you can tell that I've done this, used this felt before. You know, before I really started working with alcohol inks, they kind of made me nervous because I didn't really know. It felt like they could permanently, you know, your permanent record, like when you were in high school and somehow or other you just didn't want it on your permanent record. Well, alcohol inks, because of their property, chemical properties, they do have the ability to stain things that are porous or even non-porous, like glass and plastic and those sorts of things. And that's why when you're working on it, you want to work on some sort of a craft mat. And Ranger makes a great craft mat. I usually use a large one, but just because to keep my space here a little more workable, I just have a little piece of it right here. But you want to do that because that just makes it really easy to clean up. When you're using the metallic mixatives, you only want to put just a little bit of those because they really will kind of overtake all the other colors. And you want to start on the back. So since this is a B, I want to turn it over on the back, and I'm going to use a pounce and turn motion. I know that there's lots of videos available on YouTube that you could probably get more direction than I'm giving you here. We're making almost a marbled technique, and so you pounce it and then turn it at an angle to where you hit it and do it again, and that way it keeps from you having related patterns. And once it's dry, you give it just a couple of minutes to dry. You can go back and repeat until you get the color combination that you want. Now what I want to do is I want to add my Glossy Accents, and the thing that I pay most attention to is to get the Glossy Accents right fairly close to my edges, because that's where I want the seal to be made the best. And this is what I call the flatten and smush technique. Flatten and smush. You want to kind of wiggle it around on your paper in the general vicinity of where you want it to end up. But that little wiggle and smush will cause the glossy accents to make their way out, and therefore will seal the project. And then I just, we'll take a wet wipe and just bring that away. And one of the reasons that I like using the glossy accents as well is that it dries perfectly clear and it dries very quickly. So within just a few minutes, I really could begin trimming that out with the Tim Holtz scissors. But I went ahead and worked ahead so that we could actually let that one dry while we are doing this, and just use my scissors to come around, and it will cut right through the glossy accent. And as a finishing touch on this, I want to add a little bit of the gold leaf. And once you have the paint running, it will just flow really nicely out onto your project. And any little bit of paper that may have been left will just have that detail covered right up. And if we want to add a few little swirls to our letter, just to give it just a bit more dimension, because one of the cool things about doing alcohol inks on the back side and then putting crystal glossy accents is that it actually magnifies and liquefies permanently the alcohol ink work that you've done. And so you've got this very deep, rich, multi-layered element, and when you put the stamp on top of it all, it just gives even more depth to that final piece. Let's see if you can see that. Look how pretty that is. It's got a nice shine. It almost looks like one of those cloisonne letters that they make out of Italy. And I know we made it faster than that little process is. So anyway, that's another thing we can do with these alcohol inks and shapes and letters. When we come back, I'm going to show you how to add extra cool texture using your Cuttlebug. So come back, we'll get this cleaned up, and come back and we'll have a bit more fun.